a moment. But over the weekend, UCLA's Chip Kelly, you kind of have heard Jim Harbaugh talk about players getting equal revenue based on the revenues being produced in college football, and others have said that. Others have just said, man, there's got to be a way to change up the schedule. Paul and Craig, you guys have mentioned a lot about how everything seems to run together. I have too. But listen to this. This is UCLA's Chip Kelly on all that's going on right now in college football and how he would, at least if he had a chance, to kind of put things in perspective of what he would do.
You said that you might have some ideas. I know that picking one to attack in college football is almost impossible because there's so many. But what is the biggest issue that you might have right now, whether it be realignment, NIL, transfer portal, and what would your plan maybe be to try to solve it?
I think they're all a problem, and I think we need to have a conference commissioner. I think football should be separate from the other sports. Just the fact that our school is leaving to go to the Big Ten in football, our softball team should be playing Arizona in softball. Our basketball team should be playing Arizona in basketball. But because football left, and they're saying, well, how do you do that? Well, Notre Dame's independent in football, and they're in a conference and everything else. I think we should all be independent in football. And you can have a 64-team conference that's in the Power Five, and you can have a 64-team conference in the Group of Five. And we separate it, and we play each other. You can have the West Coast teams, and then every year we play 7 games against the West Coast teams, and then we play the East. So we play Syracuse, Boston College, Pitt, West Virginia, Virginia. Then the next year you play against the South while you still play your 7 teams. You can play a 7-game schedule. You can play 4 against another conference, another division opponent, and you can always play against one Mountain West team every year so that we can still keep those rivalries going. Not that I've really thought about this. Not that I've a lot of spent of time on this. But I think if you went together collectively as a group and said there's 132 teams and we all share the same TV contract so that the Mountain West doesn't have one and the Sun Belt doesn't have another and SEC has one and they have another, that we all go together, that's a lot of games, and there's a lot of people in the TV world that would go through it. You can sponsor each one. Instead of calling it Group of 5 and Power 5, you can call it Amazon, Nike, bid that out to things. You do a lot of different things. But I think if we still do the same thing and take all that money, and I would do this, and I think this needs to be done, that money now needs to be shared with the student athletes, and there needs to be revenue sharing, and the players should get paid, and you can get rid of NLI, and the schools should be paying the players because the players are what the product is. And the fact that they don't get paid is really the biggest travesty. Not that I've thought about it.
That's UCLA's Chip Kelly, and I mean, you would wonder why not get like 10 ADs, 10 presidents, 10 student athletes or whoever in one room and don't let them leave until they figure it out. But a lot of that made sense. Whether it's feasible, whether it can be done, I don't know. But there was nothing that he said that didn't make sense to me.
No, it all makes a lot of sense. The problem is that to do that, you have to get 2 very large entities in particular that made those deals independent of the other conferences to agree to such a thing. And that is probably something that is way off in the future because, there's just so much money running to the Big Ten and the SEC, and they're not just going to go like, you know what? Let's share this money with everybody because it's better for everybody, because that's not their overall goal. Their overall goal is to help themselves and not the overall sport of college football. Whatever happens in their wake has not been considered. And that's where the rubber meets the road on this. But revenue sharing is going to happen. It's going to happen. Otherwise, none of this can be sustained. I mean, because they're going to run up into a huge problem anyway, because eventually they will figure out a way to unionize college athletes, and they will figure out a way to do those things. And if the NCAA is not revenue sharing or working towards it, then they're just going to be screwed again.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he's saying anything that's exactly brand new opinion-wise. I think this has been a conversation ongoing for quite a while, for at least 2 years, if not longer, every day on social media, every day nearly on talk shows like this. So I think we all understand that this is not the way it is right now going to be the way that it is in the future. I do agree with him just how ridiculous it is that you're not going to see UCLA playing Arizona in conference softball games anymore. We covered that whole pack breakdown extensively because it directly involved the Big 12 and all of that. And, by the end of it, because of some of the vitriol and some of there's just a silly elementary name calling from certain people, it made it like a personal thing when it wasn't a personal thing. It was just a matter of fact thing that some people refused to believe because they didn't want to believe the truth. And so therefore, tried to turn it into this nasty thing, but it was just part of the deal. And, when it was all said and done, the dust settled, one side won, so to speak, but did anybody really win in the long run? I mean, is the Big 12 now solidified forever and ever? No. I mean, is the Pac-12 ever going to be the same? No. I mean, there's just so many things that we don't know about the future and what it looks like, but there's been all these little things along the way, and you hope that when one question gets answered, then that'll be enough for a while, but then it's just like 10 other questions pop up right after that. It's like, you go and you get those 4 schools, and all of a sudden it's like, well, what about NIL, and what about TV contracts, and what about, the playoff, and how do you get this, and how do you get that? And there's just question after question on every single aspect of the game, off the field, on the field, and everything that has to do with players. It's a jumbled mess right now, and there seems to be a really clear path forward for certain schools, the bigger ones with the deeper pockets. The ones that seem to be associated with them conference-wise are okay right now, and there's a lot of other schools out there that don't quite know what the future looks like, and it's all big and scary, but I think that the only way to really move forward is, in fact, to, yes, have revenue sharing and to just change some ways that you've been doing things for quite a while now, because the courts have told you that you have to, and also just because it makes sense at this point to stop digging your heels in the sand and realize it's just better for the game now at this point to stop having lawsuits and just move forward and change the game. And so what that looks like on the other end, I don't know, but I would like it to get back to where at some point down the line, it's not going to be immediate, it's not going to probably be soon, but we do go back to more regionality and things that make sense as opposed to conglomerates. And I think you hit the nail on the head of call it the Amazon conference or the Nike conference or whatever you want to, but at least make it make some sense, and let's do it the right way. But I mean, right now there's the National Labor Relations Board case that's going on, and that's going to be massive when it comes to employee status for players. So we're going to see that throughout this week and whatever that looks like on the other end. But I think he's just saying a lot of the frustrations that a lot of people have been touched by at one point or another, or in some cases, some fans have dealt with all of that at one point or another. So yeah, it's a wild scene right now in college athletics. I love college sports. I think that players deserve to get paid. I think the best solution is probably revenue sharing. I understand that not everybody's going to be able to do that to the same extent, but nothing's equal in college sports. It never has been. It's never going to be exactly. And so if that's the best path forward, it's about time to stop resisting and just give into the inevitable and figure out the best way to manage that and keep this as close to what you think it's supposed to be as possible. But losing lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit's not getting you there. So, I hope for a day when we're talking about the simple things, just like what he's talking about, and not more of these court cases. But who knows when that's going to finally come back around and things make sense again.
Couple of notes from Bracket Cat. Funny how UCLA suddenly feels so generous about after bolting for the Big Ten and leaving the pack high and dry. From UT Parking, if revenue sharing with players happens, are they still considered student athletes?
No.
Will they have limits on how many years they can play? I feel like that's a gray area.
The student athlete thing, that's already so electrically charged with people hating that term and feeling like that's just a blanket term to use to not have to consider them employees. And in some ways that is exactly what it is. I do think there are administrators. I do think there's coaches out there who believe in the student athlete and really believe in that and believe in, going to school at college sports. Amazing as that sounds. There are people that believe in getting your degree and it being beneficial for you, believe it or not, despite what the sponsors say or the bowl games say or whatever. There is that part of it, but are you going to be able to intermingle those two for much longer? I don't know. That's the question that everybody's trying to figure out. And I do think there's one side that wants it to be that way, not because they refuse to pay players, they don't want players to get anything, but because they believe in the college side of things as opposed to a pure pro sports minor league model. And there's others that clearly just want to make money and have their NFL light and whatever. And I don't know how all of that gets sorted out or ironed out. I know that cases going on like the one with the NLRB right now. in court today is going to be a part of that in deciding fair or unfair labor practices as alleged by the NCPA, the Players Association, against the PAC, against the NCAA, against USC, against UCLA. Those are all named in the lawsuit. So, just one of many suits that are going to help clear the air somewhat, but the waters are as muddy as ever.
Mitt Winter is going to join us tomorrow, Craig, on almost everything you brought up in that article. He's an NIL attorney. He is from an attorney from a law firm that has done a lot when it comes to athletics, et cetera, but also in whatever they do practicing law. He'll join us tomorrow. Dan Lust, of course, has been a go-to. Mitt Winter, I kind of saw some of what he has been saying, even about more and more, like every day there's something that piles up. And so he'll join us tomorrow if you're interested in that. Conundrum